Welcome, welcome, welcome. And we are so pleased to have a special guest today with us here on the Love Pod. My name is Nathaniel, and I've gotten to know Steve Setka in some pretty synchronistic and miraculous ways. I was one of the guests on his podcast as well, the Steve Setka Show. I am really, every time I talk to Steve, it's such an uplifting, beautiful conversation. And, Steve has managed to combine some really interesting topics of faith and freight and sport. And he's in a really excited time right now because he is about to step into fatherhood. And I am just so grateful that we could find this time, make this time to gather together today and talk about life, talk about love, talk about conscious parenting and faith and whatever comes up. So I'd like to just invite you, Steve, just to introduce yourself to our guests and to let us know brought you here today and to do a check-in. I didn't mean to steal your thunder there with childbirth. I mean, uh, but yeah, catch us up. What's going on with Steve?
Oh, it's awesome to be here. I'm just so excited, Nathaniel. It's such a blessing to be in contact with you. And, we got in touch a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago when we were out in BC together. I was visiting, you were living/visiting there, I believe. And now we're in different parts of Canada, right? Both you and I, and we're here on a Sunday afternoon. It's beautiful, it's blessed, and just
Mm.
excited to enter this new journey of life, they call fatherhood. And we had a bit of a plan. So I'm just excited to be on the Love Podcast, LHV, Light Heart Vision. Let's go. Let's make it happen.
That's wonderful, Steve. I got to check in, man, because like I had all kinds of feelings and thoughts and ideas and Julia as well. She had plans of how things were going to go, and we prepared a lot. And when the miraculous unfolds of life, and in that moment, it's totally unlike anything that I've ever experienced. So I just want to check in with you now and capture a snapshot of what's going on with Steve as you're getting ready to enter this phase, how you're doing, how your beautiful wife is doing. Let us know.
Yeah, man, excellent, awesome. Up and down, man. It's like the story of the Bible. It's a story of life in general. It's rises and falls, like it's peaks and valleys, right? So there's been some challenges, there's been some difficulties, right? But pregnancy is
Mm,
incredible. It's the most miraculous thing I think that us as humans are blessed with the ability to do. Women being able to do that, right? And a husband and a man being supportive in that journey is just
mm.
so wonderful. So we're just so grateful for the opportunity to go through this because, yeah, it took a bit. Like we had to try for a while, which is fun in itself. We need to invite the Holy Spirit into it. And, we prayed a lot over top of that, part of our life. And, it's a combination of the physical, the spiritual, the emotional, and the mental, right? So we're near the end, I guess you could say, of pregnancy, but we're near the start of the next journey, which is Parenthood. So, you reached out to you and said, I want to get on the show and talk about a before experience and an after experience. And we're at the before experience here, and
Yeah.
short notice because sometimes you don't always plan when
Yeah.
but it's going to happen, and it's happening here in the next day or two.
That's totally amazing. I'm so excited for you, Steve. And I know in the conversations we've had, I mean, your child is already so blessed to have you as a father. You're present, you're conscious, you care about people. You're like, there's so many good things that we need to embody as conscious fathers, like, and to be really there and present for our wives, for our wives, for our children, for our families too. And there's there's so much that we've talked about as we kind of enter this. I'm happy to guide like you in questions and things, but I want to know, like, what's your vision of fatherhood? How do you see yourself showing up and being the kind of father that you envision yourself to be?
Man, I love this question. I love talking about fatherhood. I feel like this was my purpose to be on earth, right?
Mm,
I serve God and create babies. So like fatherhood's a big part of that, being a parent, right? And it's been a journey for sure. I mean, I'm 33 years old now. I'm almost 34 and becoming a father for the first time. And it took a while to find, my one
mm,
and true love. And we put each other first. So, it's been a long time coming, definitely. And going through this journey is quite exciting. And it's interesting talking about it from a man's point of view, I believe. And I love talking to you about it because The man, I feel like, societally speaking, gets kind of left behind a little bit.
Mm,
And I consider the role of the husband or the role of the man in pregnancy to be quite significant. And that's because I listen to the eternal life rather than,
mm,
the world that we live in.
mm,
Because it's all about the woman. I get it. She's the number one. She's priority. She's, it's about her physical, her mental, her spiritual health, and just her emotions and move forward. But having a good, solid, strong man beside her is important value, and she's so grateful for that. So, we it's really brought us closer together,
mm.
definitely. And Casey and I have only been together for 2 years. I don't want to say only. It's been 2 years. We've been together and married for a year, and now we have a baby on the way. And it's I would be nice to say, no, I never saw this coming. No, I knew this was going to happen. I knew this
Mm.
was the plan for my life, but I didn't know who it was with. I didn't know who my wife would be. I didn't know what the opportunity would look like. I never truly understood what, really loving your wife meant, obviously, before I was married and met her. And now going through this, I'm just like flying high for sure. And I'm realistic as well, too, that um, it's not going to all be daisies and
Mhm.
peaches and rainbows all the time. We're entering a challenging part of life, but that's why we lean in, right? That's why we lean into the Holy Spirit to guide us and help us along the way.
Yeah. Well, I feel like talking with you, I really appreciate that practical aspect of you because you are an entrepreneur, you own a freight business, and you're also, a communicator, having your own podcast and talking with others that helps expand. For me, like it's been very expansive in terms of listening to other people and really getting to know one another deeply. I, I'm really grateful you brought up this important aspect that I think in our time is very important to talk about the importance of manhood, the importance of fatherhood, and as a supportive element in the family. I mean, really, that balance of the masculine and feminine to be in harmony is really important. And choosing the right partner, I think, is probably one of the most important decisions. Like I too am like stepped into fatherhood a lot later than I probably would have guessed I would. But I really needed to meet the right person to have a child with because if your values are different or you're not able to really be your full and authentic self and to prioritize your relationship, it can really be detrimental to the child. I mean, we live in a world where like half people don't stick together, and I really think that family unit is really important to have healthy communities. So I know that there's a number of people who are like reclaiming the importance of family because that really is kind of the backbone of our society and there we're kind of I feel like the pendulum is swinging a little bit more because we entered into I understand where a lot of the like feminism movement started and then the pendulum from my perspective swung too much into neo-feminism and I can't say that I'm an expert in this but
Hmm.
anytime we are like blaming and shaming a whole other group of people and not looking at our inherent equality as beings and that we have roles to play and that everyone has a purpose like to blame men for the plight of women is to be ignorant of the whole picture and the system of things like as humanity awakens we all have a responsibility to create um, a more connected and loving society. And I really do feel like that starts with the family. So
Hmm.
I'd love to hear how you've taken all of your experiences in business and the podcast and how you're seeing yourself entering this. Like, what is your perception of yourself at this time, Steve?
It's pretty good overall. It's funny you say that, and I want to address that right away. And I want to acknowledge that you and I have, talked about these things before and at vulnerable, no level, because I've opened up recently about some vulnerabilities I've had that have attacked my masculinity. And I love how you talk about the energetics because we believe tremendously about the female and the feminine, the masculine energetics for sure, and how that's been contorted these days by groups and culture and environment, civilization, etc. Without getting too much into the weeds of that, but I actually did a show on this not too long ago about
Okay.
rage and lust and a couple things that I've struggled with and been challenged by as like tests going into fatherhood, right? And I just released, an episode about it on my
Okay.
show, the Steve Setka Show, about, some rageful feelings that I've had recently and throughout my life and, the energy that runs through my body, which is not overly, consciously aware
Hmm.
and struggling with that. And another one was lust and sexual desires that were outside of the design that we have for life. Not recently, but just in my past. So dealing with those things head on helps quite a bit because it helps me realize that I'm not perfect. I don't have to be perfect, and
Hmm.
I'm just aspiring to a great vision for our family and our life, and to serve God, like I said, and and understand that I don't have to do it alone.
Hmm.
When I am alone, I'm always with the Lord, and when I'm with Casey, she and I are together, and our families are supportive, and they're quite a bit different, and they have a lot of opinions on what we should do and how we should go about it. And you kind of filter that in and out and choose which ones you're going to kind of listen to. So, who I am as a man right now, I feel like I am strongest in my masculinity as I've ever been, right? And you and I both know that masculinity isn't just about that framing around hunting and fishing and the burly beard and the big muscles, etc. I mean, that's part. It could be part of it if that's what your definition is. Um, I don't think there's one definition of masculinity per se. I think there's guidelines that are the
Hmm.
truth, like you say. Like the truth of masculinity, I think is like concrete, right? And it's principles per se, right? So do I train and do I lift a lot of weights? I did before this show. Absolutely. Do I believe in spiritual and emotional strength as well? 100%. And that's number one for me. And I feel like I'm doing well with
Hmm.
that. Mentality, slowing down, breathing exercises, stuff like that. I'm
Hmm.
learning that a little bit more. So moving into that space where it's a holistic approach is quite challenging because I've lived my life on like fast forward and in the fast lane so far, and I got to slow down to speed up these days. So I believe I'm in the right spot. I very much do. My wife encourages me for that, and I think she's in the right spot. And people always tell us they're like, "You're never going to be prepared for having kids," and like we know we're not prepared, but we feel like as prepared as we need to be,
Yeah.
and where we are right now, and like we're going into this literally like labor and delivery within the next could be any time, like 12
Yeah.
hours, 4 hours.
Yeah.
And this is why we're talking now. And, it could be midway through the podcast, but, it's you just have to remember, and I struggle with this, that, I'm exactly where I need to be right now. Like
Mhm.
sitting in this chair, this powwang in the baby room and the nursery is exactly where I'm supposed to be right now. Because I just came from the couch
Mm.
where we were, practicing some, heightened oxytocin, physical cuddling and, stimulation type of things in order to induce, naturally induce,
Okay.
labor, I guess you could say, per se, because we know it's coming very, very, very soon. So it's just been beautiful, man. That's the only way you can put it. Wonderful and beautiful, and the whole
Yeah.
experience. And it doesn't mean it's been perfect or great all the time. It's been very difficult, but beautiful is the best way to put it.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you saying that. Part of stepping into this journey myself is really like doing our best to be as conscious as possible, like embracing the seeming imperfections that come up. And I really love that you brought up these parts of ourselves that we don't always acknowledge, the rages, the lusts, and that can appear in different way, in life. You brought up the word courage. I remember because that root word Carl is courage, right? And I was talking to an Irish medicine woman about this one day, and she said, in Irish, that word means the rage of the heart. And I was like, oh, that's really
Wow.
interesting. The rage of the heart. So
Wow.
courage literally has those two words, Carl and rage. And I think rage is a lot different than anger for me because it's like this. I feel like it's the fire of passion of like when you have a purpose to fulfill and you see turmoil in the world, you see poverty and suffering and stuff. And there's you just we I think it's a very masculine part of the drive, the will to make change, to be a positive force. So I feel like it can be channeled and like I love what you said about never being alone because we always have our creator.
Mhm.
However we want to talk about it never really gives the fullness in our words anyways. But the fact that we recognize that there's a relationship there to nurture at the heart of our life, and
Mhm.
that is reflected in how we show up in other people's lives. So when we don't deal with, some of these lower qualities, like lust is a great example, and we can kind of explore that because we live in a society where I would say lustfulness is really promoted, in a lot of ways. It's encouraged.
Absolutely.
It's you see it in, it's almost like there's a violence if you put on TV, which I don't watch anymore, but you'd be watching a show and then and it doesn't just have to be sex. It can be like food. There's a hamburger pushing in
Right.
your face, or you'll see like, all the subliminal messaging around sexuality. And one of the things I love most about the Christ letters is he really talks about the relationship of man and woman, and in conceiving a child, how important it is to be in a state of true unconditional love with one another, because the state of consciousness that we're entering into that energy can either be uplifting to both partners, but if it's just done out of gratification and for selfish reasons, it actually depletes our consciousness, because there's an exchange of consciousness in
Mhm.
that act. And so the fact, I think that the conscious parenting is just continuing to do our inner work. Like that's why it's called parenting. It was we got this from Dr. Shafali, right? She said it's not called childing, it's called parenting, because
Yeah.
you're supposed to do your work as a parent, because a little like our daughter's about to be 2, and she does things like she was tired today. There's a big mess of popsicle sticks on the ground, and I kept putting it back in the container, and she getting a little dysregulated because she was tired, and she didn't want to pick up. She wasn't being cooperative. And I'm like, you know what? I could try to control her right now and like be stern with her and like discipline, but that's not like, even though I felt like some frustration come up because I just put it in twice, and usually she's cooperative. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to embrace the fact that she has this like natural rebellious side that's coming up because she's tired. I'm aware of this as a father. So I just said, okay, well, I'll bring you upstairs, and Papa's going to clean this up, because I often clean up after you. So I'm like trying to find ways of like communicating lovingly. So I explained to her instead of, because I feel like we've all had like harsh experience, whether it was teachers or coaches or parents or whatever, who just harshly told us something without giving us loving context. And to me, that's so important. So, anyways, I just rambled a lot there, but I'm excited for you, Steve. I mean, like you're saying, a day or two could happen during this podcast. Like I would, I can't even really remember leading up to, because it happened so suddenly for us. Like I thought it would be in a couple weeks, and then Julia woke me up in the middle of the night one night, and she's like, "I think my water broke," and I'm like, I was like, no, it couldn't be. Like, go back to bed, and I just was in denial,
Yeah.
because I think a part of me was like, I'm not ready. I haven't done enough work. And I think that's a natural feeling. So I love that you've kind of framed it like we're where we need to be. You're trusting, this
Yeah.
is faith, right? This is
Yeah.
faith. That's amazing, brother. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I want to jump in there and just acknowledge that, because like what you guys went through is wonderful and beautiful. You kind of forget what had happened. I mean, you don't have to remember everything, right? It's we're just enjoying the journey, right? The journey is a big part of it for sure. And we're pre-birth right now, and we're going into it. And it's been an interesting like last couple days for sure. So we're very conscious about it. And I want to tell you quickly, our story, because you're saying, you got woken up in the middle of the night. So did I. Like we are very much into the NFL specifically. We're watching football today, and we were cuddling, and it was just wonderful, so beautiful. So our way to connect, and we were just watching Red Zone. It was so fun. And this weekend's been an interesting sports weekend, and everybody's aware that the Jays lost the World Series last night, and that was like
Yep.
low key devastating for us. Like I'm a big sports guy. I talk about it on my show. I love the Jays like right now, and I watched
Mm,
every game, but it's the only baseball I watched all year. But we connected last
mm,
night, and we believe that there's like spiritual meaning behind this weekend,
mm.
and how all these series of events brought us closer together to become ready.
Okay.
We're not ready, but like we are ready, like
Yeah.
spiritually, and he's decided that for us. So,
Yeah.
we chill Friday night. She was coaching volleyball, and yesterday I worked a bit, and I had some reffing, some hockey to do, and came home and ate some lunch, had some dinner, and just like calm, peaceful. And yeah, Jay's game at 7, ended at what, 11 o'clock on Central Time, where we live in Winnipeg. On the television, my mom came over for 4 or 5 innings, and we were just like there together. And it was like the first time in a long
Beautiful.
time that she and I just sat on the couch for together for like 3, 4, 5 hours. Because I can't sit still for a very long period of time. It's kind of like giggling, it's kind of get tense, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I went to bed like, just before midnight after the game was done, after that low-key devastation, which is not going to affect my life or tragically, but it was a unifying moment for the country, and it
Hmm.
didn't end the
Hmm.
way that we wanted it. But she woke me up too. Same thing, 1:30 in the morning. And
Yeah.
she said my water's broken. And I'm like, what? Come on. Like, just like you said, I was in denial. I was like 2 hours into sleep, and didn't know what she meant and looked at the bed and it wasn't wet. And she's like, no, it's wet, I promise. And I didn't understand. And I'm like, well, do you need my help? Like, what's the plan here? And so she starts getting on Google and AI and going to do her thing that she needs to do it in the bathroom. And she's like, no, we'll just relax. It's still gonna be a while. And 12 to 18, 24 hours. I had no idea. So
Okay.
like until you're in it, you don't really understand. And we're in that,
Yeah.
like, we're at like
Okay.
14, 15 hours right now, right?
Okay.
So it could take a little bit longer, and for
Wow.
the process to start labor and delivery. And we already know, man, like we're quick labor and delivery. We're going to be in and out of there so fast. And people might think that it's naive to say that, but our plan is 4-hour childbirth, and it's because we're doing supernatural. And it may not be, but we're very optimistic about it. So I mean, it's just been a great day so far today too. Went to church this morning, felt good, saw my parents, didn't tell anyone. The only reason we're talking about it now is because you're releasing this episode after, right? Because we don't
Yep.
want, an abundance of people coming at us. But had a midwife appointment after church, and now
Okay.
we're just living our life normally and big smiles on our face because for the first time, I think truly honestly in my life, I can honestly say, Nathaniel, that I have put a pause on literally everything else that
Mm.
does not matter and focused on what does matter. Doesn't mean I'm stopped doing things. I still lifted weights. I
Yeah.
raked some leaves out there. It's a beautiful day. I spent some time in nature, went for a walk with the dog with Casey. We did some asymmetrical walking on the curb, which was awesome. These like natural things to just like move the process along a little bit more, which is so fun, man. I'm just like flying high. And then you and I communicated. Now we're sitting here on the pod. So, I mean, that's where we're at right now. And I don't even know what question you answered. It doesn't really matter because we're
It
just
doesn't
flowing in
matter.
conversation here, man. What's coming up in your mind when I tell you these stories? Like, are you recollecting about your experience that you had 6 to 8 months ago?
Yeah, that's a great. That's actually 21 months now. She's
21. Oh,
yeah,
shoot.
yeah,
How
yeah. It's
long?
been
Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
My
No, that's
mistake. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, man. You know what
Oh,
the
man,
thing
that's almost 2 years.
that I would impart to you this perspective that like soak in every moment. I mean, we've talked about the moment home miracle, and I've been thinking a lot more about what is the moment home miracle, and I really feel like it has the potential to be a cultural operating system, like how we recognize one another and really seeing remembering from that childlike perspective of wonder. I think there's humility in that too, like recognizing that we're witnessing miracles in one
Yes.
another all the time. For me, catching Luciana, like we didn't even know we were gonna have a girl, right? And I didn't even know she was a girl until like a few moments. Like her presence in her eyes,
Yeah.
looking at me that first moment was just so like connective. And we were all sitting around the dinner table. All Hallows Eve there the other night, and I made quesadillas. Everyone got home late, so I'm like, okay, I'll make supper. And we were sitting at the dinner table, and Nona and Nono were there, Julia's parents, and Luciana was really liking the quesadillas. She was just really enjoying it. And food hasn't always been her like it's not her priority. So sometimes she's just not into eating, and that's a whole other. There's all kinds of things and particularities, and I think all children are so unique. And this is again back to the miracle, right? It's like really being present with who we are as individuals. Like we're not meant to be cookie cutters. But
Mhm.
anyways, as we were sitting there, Steve, she just has this way about her. She's very caring. She really listens to people. She says really like beautiful things. And Julia, I'm really grateful Julia's a good listener because she heard her. She said in a soft voice, she said, "I love you guys." And like to everyone, she just said, "I love you guys," like out of the blue. And then I looked at Julia's. I'm still cooking the quesadillas and stuff, and Julia said, "Did you guys hear that? Luciana, can you repeat that again?" And she's like, "I love you guys," and she gets all excited when she and I went and looked at her, and you could see like she was glowing.
Yeah.
She was just glowing, like really feeling. She wasn't just saying something, like she was feeling, and she wanted us to know that she loved us all. And, like, I feel like that's what I'm so excited about for you, Steve. I mean, childbirth at moments is so extraordinary, but I really feel like it's the journey that we embark with our children as spiritual partners who help us grow and we help them grow. And it's really a partnership, is how I see it. Like, we have a role, this is my perspective, that, we have a role as parents, as fathers, to be guides, to create boundaries, to create structure and be really examples of how to be kind, how to treat one another. But at the end of the day, I really do. believe now that children are not only our greatest teachers because they will show us, they'll reflect to us if we have unresolved emotional patterns and things. I think they reflect to us, especially at certain ages,
Mm.
everyone talks, we've labeled ages, and I think especially when it gets into the teenage, I'll tell you about that when that happens. But I feel like they're also our greatest teachers, because they lead with open heart. They're authentic in their emotional expression. If they're not happy, they cry. If they're joyful, they laugh. I still remember the first time Luciana giggled, like literally laughed. I was holding her, and we were at our friend's house on the island, and I was holding her and running, and I was kicking a soccer ball under her to simulate like she was kicking it, and
Wow.
she just went into this giggle attack. Like I'd never heard her laugh before. It was like such a joyful moment.
Wow.
So I guess, yeah, you're right. Like you're bringing up for me all of these firsts that you go through.
Mm.
And really, I would say to all of our listeners and to you too, like every day there are firsts. And I really feel like it's important as we embark on and intentionally become conscious parents, is that remembering like every day there's gratefulness to be had. Every day there's miracles to be witnessed, and to not normalize it. If we can stay on that edge, and I really think our relationship with our creator is the most important relationship to nurture and to really foster that. Yeah, yeah.
Me
So
too.
that's what
Me
you're
too.
in my mind, but
Thank you, man. Thanks for sharing that with me, man. It's I'm excited to, embark on this journey. And I think what you just described is the definition of home. What you
mm,
talk about, right? Heaven on Mother Earth, which I remember from our conversation, so
yeah,
powerful, right? We are recreating the Creator's image, right?
yeah,
In our own lives, right? We are made in the image and likeness of God, and we're purposely and intentionally designed. And if you do everything with intention, right, you're going to get some really wonderful outcomes for sure. I mean, we don't want to, short consider the fact that difficulties are going to arise and everything's
sure.
going to go to planned, and that life's not going to be tough and stuff like that, and life has been tough and has been challenging, but that creates wisdom, right? Like
Mm,
wisdom is created through suffering. And I mean, we've gone through a lot of suffering already in our marriage, in our life, and we have this beautiful house that is now our home because it is our heaven on Mother Earth, and we have a great dog who's like cuddly is crazy right now, and because we believe she knows the baby's coming, and we
mm.
said this morning when we left for church, we were like, Maury, we don't know if you're going to be our only like quasi child, like there might be a human coming home with us today, right? So we said that to her, which is pretty cool, and she's been like different, and she like lies in the little playpen and the floor mat, and she like cuddles up with us. She's like begging for food all the time. I think she thinks that she's gonna like not have food when the baby comes. So that's pretty fun. Financially, we're doing well, and Casey's been off work for already like almost 4 months, and
Okay.
she's off for like 14 months, still getting her mat leave, consideration from the government, which is, a temporary thing for now, and then she'll go into business doing her own thing, and ideally, and I'm just gonna speak it into existence right now, never go back to work for somebody else in the
Yeah,
workplace. That's
yeah,
the goal. So like providing and protecting is my main goal, but I always have to remind myself too, because like I think a lot about money, right? And I think young men do, right? It's not everything.
mm,
It's going to be there, and you know what will always be there? Provision from the Lord and
yeah.
from the Creator, right? Money may not always be there, and money's not the most important thing. Provision is from our Father, right? So
Mhm.
that brings me to another perspective too, man, because Casey and I have different families and different parents, and I love the fourth commandment in the Bible. It says, honor thy mother and thy father. And, I struggle with that with my parents sometimes too. I work with my dad and my sister, and my mom was over last night, and, she's just a wonderful, beautiful soul. My dad and I are a little bit more, tense towards each other. We have a very good relationship, very close, but, yeah, you have to honor your worldly mother and your father so that you
Mhm.
can honor your eternal father, right?
Mhm.
And that's something that's really come up recently too that I've had to like wrestle with a little bit, because like we're coming into a moment here in time where I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that there's gonna be 5 generations of Setkas because we don't know the sex of the baby,
Mm.
but like God is the eternal Setka father. And then there's my grandfather, who's 92 years old, living here now in Winnipeg for the first time in 65 years. He just moved back,
Oh,
near the
amazing.
end of his life. He's still doing well, waiting waiting for a private home to get into and a room to become available. Then there's my dad, and then there's me, and then there's a baby coming. We don't know that if that's a boy or a girl yet, but like I usually say, oh, 4 generations on Earth. Well, there's five. There's 5 generations
Mm,
here, right? And coming to be. So it's like things are turning out the way we know that they were supposed to,
yeah.
just with like unexpected, twists and turns along the way. And I'm like rearing to get it going here, man. Talking
Yeah.
about rearing, like I just like let's just pop this thing out ASAP. But you have to be patient, right? It's like
Yeah.
in Corinthians, it talks about what are you doing while you're waiting, right?
Mm,
And while I'm waiting right now for God to create this miracle in our life, I'm talking on the podcast, I'm lifting weights, we're cuddling on the couch, right? We're just breathing and relaxing and just enjoying what the Creator has in store for us and what He's already put in front of us, which is amazing. So thank you very much for, bringing that out of me and having me on this show, man. I can't show you enough gratitude.
yeah, oh, I really appreciate you, Steve. And I love your passion and your drive. I think this is an important part of the expression of masculinity. Just looking at the that impulse in the universe.
Mhm.
We're kind of in a weird time in history where that a lot of that stuff is being challenged. And I mean, we don't have to go down that path, but I think it really is important to recognize like those are the only two impulses in all of creation is a
Yep.
masculine drive and a feminine drive.
Yeah.
And there's infinite expressions in between that we see in nature. But it's the dance of those two impulses, and like it's so important that we do honor our relationships. And I think that in a lot of ways, I mean, I'm coming with indigenous backgrounds as well, and talked to a lot of elders, and this is a shared, and maybe it just is a belief. Neil Donald Walsh brings it up too, and Wayne Dyer talks about this. Like Wayne Dyer, one of his profound moments of awakening was, he had such a terrible relationship with his father, and he was a terrible alcoholic, and totally abandoned him. Like Wayne grew up in orphanages, and challenged him so much to grow into the man he became. So, he realized later in life when he was going, he carried so much anger towards his father, but in the moment of forgiveness, when he finally forgave him, that's when he found his real essence. So I feel like our relationships with our parents, they help us go through the forge. I like to see that whatever the ego masks that we learn to wear from our wounding or whatever in society, like there's always that eternal soul behind that. And if we can honor that in our parents as well and just recognize that, hey man, they're children too, and they probably, there are parts of them that got hurt, were told lies about themselves, like maybe they're dumb or they wouldn't amount to anything, and maybe they still have some of that in their psyche, and they're not fully aware. And so for in terms of like, I love that you brought that up. Creating heaven on Mother Earth is really about like healing those beliefs. At least that's what I understand from Christ's teachings, especially in the letters. It's like if we can heal those beliefs, then we return to alignment, so that we can hear that our Creator talking to us, and wanting to have a relationship, a friendship, a deep. Like I heard this Esther Patel talked about. She talked about intimate relationships. I was listening to a podcast with her, and I really liked her perspective. She said, like 50 years ago, the concept of a soulmate was understood much differently than it is now.
Mm.
Our soulmate was God. Our soulmate was our relationship with God. And now we're in this weird age where there's this real big burden on intimate relationships to be the end all be all. And I love that you like have sports as a connection with your wife. Like for me, if I was into sports, Julie wouldn't be interested in that. So we wouldn't gel in that. And I think there's a lot of pressure on couples. Like you need to be my best friend, you need to be my coach, you need to be my lover, you need to be an excellent chef, you need to be, you need to take care of the books for the business. You got all these things, and it's like it's so much pressure, right?
Yeah.
And we really are community beings.
Yeah.
So like yeah, I'd love to hear how that is I think last time we talked, I don't know how well how much, because how long have you been in Winnipeg, Steve?
Most of my life for
Okay.
sure. So I'm 33, almost 34. I spent 30 years here. I lived in Australia for a
Amazing.
couple of years, and I lived in BC for a couple of years prior to knowing you. But yeah, like a good support network here, good family, good people around, and
Amazing.
lots of community for sure. And it's funny you bring that up because you're talking about the books you read and the content that you subscribe to. Like we do the same, right? And I do the same. And I want to bring this up because it's very important in my life. There's a huge event that happened in the world like 2 months ago. It's Charlie Kirk, and the whole
Mhm.
incident, and that just brought me closer to the creator. And he taught me so much stuff. And his videos were so powerful and so impactful. And I remember um, him talk like what he talked about was just conviction, right?
Yeah.
And like what you believe in, and just
Yeah.
go forward, be uncensored, be a champion, and utilize your spirit and your faith, right, to build a better life and seek the truth, right? And that's exactly what we're doing. So, um, what was your question again? Remind me, because I had something else.
I think this is a beautiful bridge because I was talking about community, and I'm glad you brought
Let
in
me Let me
yeah,
jump into that. Sorry, yeah, and let's bridge this for sure too, because I say community, and I'm reading this great book. It's called Happiest Baby on the Block. I'm sure you've heard of it. Dr. Harvey
yes,
Sharp. He's a
yeah.
faith-oriented guy. It's
That's a
beautiful.
great yeah, it's a great book.
It's
Yeah.
a great book, and I love it. And I got it from the library. I've renewed it like two, three times now. I'm just going through it and learning the five S's and like what the world teaches you about childbirth and what's actually true and real. And I'm
Mhm.
like, man, this is earth-shattering, right? Like all the stuff getting into the medical industrial complex, the language that's used, which I find, a little bit of a turnoff sometimes, but I won't get into the
Yeah,
details there. But my wife is a woman, not a birthing person, but
of
I digress.
course.
I won't get into
No,
I
I
won't
think
get
it's very
into
important. She's
politics.
she's
It is
she's
important.
she's a woman
It
and
is
she's
important.
she's going to be a mother. Yeah,
She's gonna be a mother,
I
exactly.
wholeheartedly
So
agree with that. Yeah.
I just made a show, a little recording on that 10, 15 minutes a couple days ago as well. And the medical industrial complex is like a thing for sure, but then like God's, plan for childbirth is different, and that's supernatural, right? And that's like, we understand there's medical reason, facilities for reasons, and we're going to do it at the birth center, not the hospital per se, and it's still within the system, but um at least we're educating ourselves
Mhm.
and learning and listening about what the intention is for childbirth rather than just what we're being told. Charlie said, question everything, right? And
Yeah.
go into it with an open mind, and some things you agree with or don't agree with, like listen and strengthen your own argument. And I talked with different types of people. So we've had a really beautiful, wonderful experiences, and a couple of the bumps and bruises I just spoke about are there. But one thing it said in the book that was very interesting, I just read earlier today was, within the last 50 years, like we've had people grow up like myself, like, elderly people, same thing, that haven't had much to do with community or
Mm.
raising kids or raising, families and stuff like that. Like, I don't know what it means to raise a family, right? But 50 years ago and to the beginning of time, right? Like community, like it took a village, right? Like it still
Mhm.
takes a village.
Mhm.
And that's traditional like conservatism. And it's being erased somewhat these days because our world is so convenient and everything's at our fingertips, where
Mhm.
people are like more individual and
Mhm.
independent than others. Whereas it's funny you say that, oh, she's very independent, or he's very independent. We're not supposed to be independent of each
Mhm.
other. We're supposed to be dependent on others. We're supposed to be dependent on God. We're supposed to
Mhm.
give ourselves up for the betterment of the community, right? And contribute, which is fascinating. So we're bringing that back, and we'd like to. And like you said, you hang out with your parents in the community, and it's not just you and your
Mhm.
Julia raising this beautiful daughter. It's the community, and we want that to be our life as well too. So there's a lot of intention with this process we're going through to bring that back. Because the consequences of not doing that way are devastating, and we
Mhm.
don't want that. So we have a vision, and we'll never reach it per se, but we always know what we're targeting, right? We
Mhm.
understand where we're going, and we're happy to be on that journey. So like I don't even know what to say to make it better. Like it's so great, it's so wonderful, man. I'm just so excited, right? And it's not going to go as planned. We know that.
Mm.
We know the whole pro is not going to go as planned. But however it goes is going to be the exact way it was supposed to be, and
Yeah.
that's just the design for the process.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love you saying that because I feel like just being in a state of appreciation and gratitude. I don't know about you, Steve, but I could have never planned the journey of life. We have ideas, we have vision, and I think that's important. It's very important to have a higher vision and to keep expanding that higher vision.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's possible to have a highest vision, but a higher vision is certainly something to strive for. But if I look back at my life, if I would have set like my whole plan of my life, and know some people really try to control every element of their life, like I'm going to go to school, I'm going to, be a doctor, I'm going to do this, and like you say, it's like it's not going to go, it's never goes according to expectations. But if we stay in a state of connection, and I think gratitude is just does that,
Hmm.
and we stay open-minded, open-hearted, and in presence of that, like life is so much more beautiful than I could have ever planned it. I don't know about you, but
Oh,
like,
bro, it's unbelievable. Like,
right?
heck, it's a miracle, right? And I couldn't have designed it like this. It
Exactly.
takes something far greater than me in order to like, journey through this.
Yeah. And I think that's to me is the mastermind that, is the divine, loving, intelligent creator that we share. And it's I'd like to maybe jump in. You brought up Charlie Kirk in that very unfortunate event. And before we got on the show, we were chatting a little bit about um our beliefs and how they can be somewhat different, our perspectives. And I asked you, like, you know can we come to an agreement that Christ himself has a perspective in
Mhm.
consciousness that
Right.
is probably a lot more transcendent, if not completely transcendent, of our own?
Yeah.
And we have a as human beings, from this vantage point on this earth, in as part of this greater cosmos, like, it is, I think it's so laughable that we think that we can fully understand the nature of creation, the wholeness of our creator from this one physical vantage point.
Mhm.
And I think that, like, I really appreciated Charlie too in his he was extremely articulate, very well researched, and very like self-studied man. You can tell that he put a lot of thought and consideration and contemplation into his forming his opinions. And I think that that was really important to, because he was really in trained in the education system, and he was challenging things in a very confrontational way. So he had a lot of courage as well. Like, and
Yeah.
he probably had that rage, like you're saying. He saw what
Yeah.
was going on in the world.
Yeah.
And you know, I I like to extend this idea of community beyond just like our immediacy. Be like, we're all, if we're really understanding that we have a shared origin that is life, this that source of life, our creator, we can recognize that even in someone who maybe is so pinched off from that perspective, like has no ability to even fathom that anything's other than what their senses tell them, or they have like a really a framework, that they're completely a materialistic, person, like, I am an atheist, God is not real, and it's just energy, even though we don't really know, and whatever.
Mhm.
Or someone who's really, you know um on the whole other side of things, who just tell me what to believe. And I don't know, like, there's a middle point. And I feel like what I appreciate about Charlie is he did a lot of his own synthesizing, and he communicated that. And when someone like that is violently removed, it makes us all pause. And for me, like, it actually brought up some fears that needed to be embraced. Like the acronym, I don't know if I shared this with you on your show. Like, my favorite acronym for fear is feel everything and remember.
Yes, I remember that now. I didn't until you mentioned it.
Okay.
Thank you for
Feel
sharing that.
everything and remember. So I realized, I'm like, wow, like he stood up for what he believed, and he had strong conviction. And I don't share all the same beliefs as him. But I would have loved to have a conversation with him. I really would have. And I even said that, to some friends before. I'm like, I would love to interview him. So I'm saddened that I don't have the opportunity to have a deeper conversation with him, because I would have loved to talk about the Christ letters with him. Few people know about them, and the Christ letters do challenge a lot of religious dogma.
Mhm.
And part of my trepidation in speaking publicly about my experiences and perceptions is, I know there will be some people who do not, um, see things the same way as me, and I don't want everyone to see things me, but they might also feel like I'm challenging their whole. worldview. And that's not really what I'm trying to do. But I do believe that there is a truth that exists between us and lives within all of us. And that's all I really care about. Like, if we're going to create heaven on Mother Earth, we need to find divine compassion, divine love, uh, joy, and laughter, and our own beautiful ways of expressing that that life, because we all have different gifts. So I
Yeah.
know I love that, and pardon me, like I'm really kind of painting a larger perception, but you're not the first friend to tell me how much that impacted things. So I'd love to hear like how that made you kind of look at your journey, your mission, how it fueled your conviction, Steve.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that and asking because it did big time. And I was a fan before of him. And he is not greater than the be all end all, but he was amazing, right? In a lot of ways. So it did create conviction in my life, and it created that like I don't care what people think about me mentality a bit more, but in a loving, compassionate way, like you said, to like speak my mind a little bit more, talk boldly and express the truth, right? And that's how I live. So it was a big part of my life as well too. And I'm glad we get the opportunity to talk about this because it entered my life. You entered my life at the exact perfect time. Charlie Kirk entered my life at the exact perfect time. And the unfortunate and incident and event that occurred happened at, I don't want to say a perfect time, but it was a time that was necessary for I think all of us. For me specifically, it hit me really hard. I put a lot of emotional investment into things that I love and I believe in, and that feeling towards beauty and greatness and wonder and truth, for sure. So I just decided that look, I'm a Christian. I'm a believer. Am I religious? I don't love religion. Organized religion. I don't love organized religion either. Like we talked a little bit about that, but I believe I'm religious. Why? Because religion is just a set of values and cultural beliefs
Hmm.
that you have. So it doesn't have to be organized religion per se. So when people say I'm not religious, they don't really know what religion is in the first place. They're thinking I'm not part of an organized religion per se, which
Hmm.
is a little bit different. So it just made me more convicted in that and just got my priorities straight, right? It's God, it's my wife, it's my children and my family, and then my business, and then everything else, right? So there's like priority rank order there, and you don't have to be scared to share that. And it just reminds me of these like timeless principles that we know, right? Like 80% of people aren't going to care. 10% will really love you, and 10% will not like you out there. So, like, why are we trying to please these people that don't like us in the first place and don't believe what
Yeah.
we have to say?
Yeah.
Focus on the people that do like us and are influenced by what we do and our contributions per se. Most people aren't going to care, right? So it's like opened me up a little bit more to that. And
Mm.
we went through one of the most like psychologically challenging times over the last 5 years that we all know about,
Mm.
which in combination with the Charlie Kirk event just showed me that what I do for the world matters.
Mm.
And what I believe makes a lot of sense. And the relationships that I'm building with others around what's happened politically, religiously, with conviction, with COVID, etc., has just formed me to who I am, and it's opened up all these new doors, which is
Mm.
amazing, right? And you put yourself out there, you put your effort into things that you're called to do,
Yeah.
great things come into your life. I decided to contribute to the kingdom financially in a significant way recently.
Mm.
Okay, like I want to give to the kingdom of God. And specifically speaking, if people don't understand what that means, I'm giving money in a substantial amount to my church to do great things. That was hard. That was really tough. And it changed my perspective from, oh, it's all about me, it's all about my wife, it's all about my family, to no,
Mm.
give away more than you have the ability to potentially stretch yourself, but don't break yourself because what you're going to get back in return naturally is far greater
Mm.
for sure. You trust God with or the creator with what you have. And if you don't appreciate what you already have, how can you be grateful for what's coming? And I wrestle with that one too, because we all sit there and complain and get frustrated with government or politics or organized religion or the way that the country is run or about how this works or a job or whatever. But that at the end of the day doesn't matter because what's coming in return is way, way
Mm.
better than
Mm.
what we could ever imagine on our own. So, we had this conversation, my wife and I, the other day that like everything that's happened is a miracle in our life. It's going to continue to be a miracle. And let's just like be blessed for that. We say grace
Yeah.
before dinner, talking about this in a goofy, fun fashion way that I talked to you about last time. And we pray every day and we talk about our gratitude at the end of the
Mm,
day with
mm,
what occurred during that day and just give it away to the
mm,
creator because that's like who put it in our life. So
mm,
it's a good perspective, man. And the reason I'm so optimistic and positive about this is because I had a very challenging couple of weeks where I didn't necessarily feel this, but I knew it was there. So when
mm.
I lean in, which is necessary, it shows up in ways that I need it to, which is exactly the essence of why we're here in life.
Yeah. Well, you know what? So much of what you said is a really important conversation, and just, I love to be a mirror to you, and because I feel like, as brothers, it's an opportunity that we have to uplift one another.
Mhm.
And when we're going through these challenges, that's really where we grow spiritually, right? Because that's when we do, like, I love how you said I leaned into it. Because so many people, I think it's from our conditioning in the society, they will turn to something else to numb those feelings. They
It's
will,
it's called idolatry. That's what they
oh
do.
yeah,
And then you
okay.
lose connection to the creator. Keep going.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Like we turn to substance, or we turn to a screen and binge watch things that are not good for our mind and consciousness, and like, just talking about, you know we can have an awareness of the evils of the world, and we know they're going on. However, our consciousness also has power. So if we are constantly complaining and putting and fueling this fire and having it as part of the discussion, that becomes now between us in our relationships, it creates this focus that I don't think is healthy for our relationships. So as much as it might seem ignorant to like turn our attention away from those things, uh in the letters he's quite clear about the importance of doing that, because if our consciousness is the gift that we've been given in this form, is like we get to choose where we are putting our attention. And
Right.
we know that, even from a pure scientific view, if you start putting attention on a particular molecule, it changes it. Like there's the observer effect. So if we macro scale that with all the collective human beings focusing on um, hating an individual, well, that's focusing on hate and towards an individual, and I just don't think it's productive of what we want to create. So instead, I love that you have that ritual of gratitude at the end of the day, of connecting with your wife, of sharing food consciously together, of like, I feel like that is so, like, every loving seed that we plant in our thoughts and our feelings and our actions, I believe does create, it contributes to the kingdom, and it might seem like that's you know, uh, a crazy perspective to take. But there's this one video I used to show our students, that I found when I was building a Science of Interconnection course for a program that I taught, and it's called "How Everything Is Connected" by Tom Chi. It's on YouTube. Maybe we'll put a link in the description here, but it's easy to find. And one of the things he uses as an example, he uses three different examples of how everything's connected. I'll just talk about when he talks about the breath, the heart, and the mind. And the breath, it really relates to what we're talking about here, because he says, before there were the micro, this, all the diversity of species and everything in our world, there needed to be an atmosphere that allowed that to happen. And he talks about, the oh, now it escapes me. But basically, the first plants that learned to photosynthesize created oxygen into our atmosphere. And I forget their names, but maybe it'll come to me. And in their whole lifespan, one of those, I think it's phytoplankton. One of those phytoplankton would produce like barely a speck of oxygen in their whole life, right? So this process happened for like billions of years. And there's probably varying perspectives on this, but
Mhm.
what it first did is it saturated all the soil and oxidized the earth, and then it took another so many billion years to actually fill the atmosphere to allow the emergence of various plant life outside of the ocean, and then allowed for the various systems. And that was his example of kind of telling us, no matter how significant you think you are, like your contributions, if it's, if your role, and Christ talks about this in the letters too, if all you do is serve tea in your life, if you serve it with love and care for the person that you're providing, that energy of that consciousness of love goes into the tea. It makes a difference. It uplifts that person, you know. And rather than if you serve it with hate and uncare, can actually lower someone's feel. So I feel like I love how you have that as a framework. To me, when I think about it, it's not just about you two anymore. You have this wonderful little ball of joy who's going to be so listening and present with both of you and observing that. So the fact that you are already creating this container and working through your challenges together in that kind of way and refocusing on gratitude, what a gift you're preparing as the home that you're building for this little one coming into the world. It's
Mhm.
just such a gift, right? You know, such a gift. I don't think you can put into words that kind of gift, man.
I just can't. I'm speechless, man. I'm speechless.
We're all interconnected, like you said. That word that I like is interdependent. We are interdependent, and
That's right.
as human species, we I find humans can be very human centric. We tend to make everything about ourselves, and we don't always see the bigger picture. And um, when we have our Creator at the heart of our gratitude and appreciation, recognizing that, like you said, all of the provisions of life all come from that. It allows us to release our grip and have that trust. So I just want to reflect that back to you as a brother, because that kind of perspective is so important, I think, entering into the new chapter of because it's a huge responsibility, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it really is and I also, my friend Calvin on the island, he said this once. We were doing some HVAC work together and I was helping him do an installation. And he said something like, just kind of like, you know, off the side, he was talking with a client and talking about being a father, and he says, it really is a service. And I thought about that. I'm like, yeah, it really is a service. Like you are giving another being an opportunity. You're giving this being love, unconditional love, hopefully is the perspective, but really is a service to be a parent, like to be a be a provider, to be a nurturer, to be a guide, to continue doing your own work. It really is a service, and it's a service to our creator to do that.
Wonderful perspective, man. It's so fun, what we're getting into here for sure. And it all comes back to, the name of your show, right? The Love Podcast, right? LHV, Light Heart Vision. I was researching that on your website when I did the intake form. So wonderful. So beautiful. It all comes back to that, man. Like there's different ways to love and show love. And, there's some truth that needs to be expressed in love. And, love doesn't always mean, telling people what they want to hear. It's not affirmation. It's not confirmation. It's about truth and it's about care about those people. And there's four types of love that you can have. One of the unfortunate natures of the English language is that we use the word love too
Mm.
loosely and liberally, because love can mean a lot of different things.
Yeah, for sure.
And in ancient Greek, there was actually four types of love that I'm sure you're somewhat aware of. I learned this on a video from Charlie actually the other day.
Yeah, let us know. Like, let's talk
Yes,
about it.
yes. And we are sharing one of the most beautiful types of love right now, which is I believe it's filio or philo love, which is like brotherly love, which is where the city of brotherly love comes from, Philadelphia.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know the other names of the other three, but I know exactly what they are. One of them would be the love for Jesus Christ that we have as Christ followers, would be one. The other type is the love you have for a child.
Mm,
And then there is the love that you would have for your spouse.
mm,
So the delineation of those types of love is so important in the world we live in right now. And we're going into that phase of life where we have the love for the child coming, which is different for the love that we have for our romantic partner, our wife, our husband, our spouse, etc. So you and I are sharing this beautiful philo love and brotherly love and in a platonic nature and expressing these ideas that need to be shared to the world, which is exactly why you're doing the show and why I was so excited to come on to this podcast to talk to you because we have such a great dialogue between the two of us, which has been fantastic. So I just want to acknowledge you for that again and show gratitude for who you are because one of the shows that we did together on my podcast was one of my better ones, and it just made me feel so good. So I'm just flying high right now, man, and I'm just in the moment, and all we really have right now, according to Eckhart Tolle, is the present, right?
Yeah.
The moment we have now, the past is gone, the future is yet to be uncovered, but we only have that moment right now to do what we are meant to do. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I really feel like it's an eternal moment that we have. It's this, and it's meant to be a journey. It's meant to be an adventure and have as you say, the highs and the lows, the challenges. I feel like this is how we grow. Because if everything was just smooth sailing all the time and there was no challenge to overcome, we wouldn't necessarily be able to grow into the fullness of our purpose. And I think it's agape. It means the love of God, the love of the
yes,
Creator.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
I'm not sure the other ones, but yes, and to me, I know that every time we talk about Yeshua, or known as Jesus and Christ, like to me, I include him in Philo love as well, because I feel like it's so important to remember that he was also a human being in our world. And what I love so much about him in particular, um, is that he continues to do this uplifting work. Like I know he's of service in our lives in ways that we don't even recognize sometimes. Like he is just such a beautiful presence in so many people's lives who are open and receptive of him and calling to him. And to me, that kind of love that he had for the world, like to me, truly, he embodied the mastery of love in a way that I don't think any other human being in our history ever truly has. Like to have gone through what he went through and to still only have love and forgiveness and upliftment for people. It's such a testament to the possibility and potential within every human being. And I think this is maybe a great way to kind of tie everything together, because as you welcome your little one into this world, they have that seed of the same highest potential and possibility that our brother told us, you too can do these things and even greater, and he demonstrated that unconditional love and that mastery of that love to such a level. Like to me, it's the greatest inspiration that humanity's ever witnessed, and I think it's why it changed the whole way. I mean, what other what other being like changes the way we talk about time? Like we
Yeah.
literally, like it was like way bigger impact than a nuclear bomb. Like it just changed. I think it awoken the species to something like that, so transcendent. And yet I feel like there still is healing that we must do, and in our relationships with one another, our relationship with the earth. And I think that the best service that we can really do, you and I, Steve, this is my perception. I could be totally, incorrect or hallucinating on my end, but I feel like showing up for our children and really, being that demonstration and as best we can to embody that same kind of love and bringing Christ into our relationships with our friends and family. It's just like what other gift can we give that's greater than that? To me, that is the absolute greatest gift we can give. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Thanks for summing it up that way. I'm ready to go, man. I'm on fire here, and I'm of service mind. So I think I got to get rolling here soon, though, which is
I hear
awesome.
you.
Love how
I hear
you
you.
tied it up, and I have to get back to my wife soon. So yeah, no, this has been great, man. Let's keep it up.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. We're so looking forward to having you on again. Just for our audience, like we want to do the after. Like I'm excited to talk to you about that already. But
Like,
let our audience know where they can find you, and we'll put that as well in our show notes.
amazing. Please do. Steve Setka on LinkedIn is where I spend a lot of my time. The Steve Setka Show on LinkedIn. Toba_Steve on Instagram. Those are the main platforms that I work out of and showcase the work that we're doing in the community. And we're just changing hearts, one beat at a time, which is amazing. So this has been a great relationship back and forth, and there's so much shared value. So just so grateful to have had this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much, Steve. So I'm gonna just play a little farewell video from our daughter Luciana. You can see how much she's grown now.
Thanks for watching.
Button.
You say ciao ciao.
Bye.
I love you so much.